Hey guys, we are back with another podcast with Tanya and her friend Allie. Allie has had and is currently dealing with colon cancer. And this is March's Colon Cancer Awareness Month. So I wanted to have her on. She shared her story. It was great. Tanya has graciously offered to do another Beauty Counter pop-up store and donate 20%. Is it?
Yeah.
20% to livingbeauty.org is the organization that her Beauty Counter pop-up will be donating to. And you can find links at my website or at Tanya's website, hopemovesmountains.com. And you can check out Allie's Instagram at #CancerLikeAMother. She was awesome. I'm so glad to have met her today. And I think we had a really great conversation about dealing with cancer, specific sort of to colon cancer, but also generally about dealing with cancer. So I know you know someone who's going through it if you're not going through it yourself. We all do, unfortunately. So I hope you enjoy the episode. I hope you learned something. I did, as I always do. And if you know someone who could use any of this information, please share it. Thanks for coming back every week. And go to the Beauty Counter pop-up and buy some clean products. I love the Beauty Counter. It's the only thing I use. I love it. So thanks again, guys. I appreciate you coming back every week. And enjoy.
I'm not a quiet.
Oh, girl, me neither. I'm a loud talker.
So how do y'all know each other?
Always have been.
At school.
From school.
Okay.
Yes. I actually knew Scott better than I knew her until
Uh-huh.
now. Now I know her better than I knew Scott.
Right.
Our elementary school has a World Fair.
Yep.
And back when my kids were at that school, I was one of the people that built the fair.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott was a really big help. The
Mhm.
first couple years they were at his back stuff happened.
Right.
Yeah. And now he still helps, but not like building stuff as much or lugging around cases of water and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Yes, he was like one of my go-to people. Where's
Mhm.
Scott Pete? Where's Scott
Mhm.
Pete? Where's Scott
Right.
Pete? That's what I did for the first 2 years. Where's Scott Pete?
I know.
Yeah, we
So-
kind of tag teamed it. He did that part, and then I did the during the fair volunteering in the
Mhm,
booths and
mhm.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I always did the building part. I didn't do that part, so I didn't really know Tanya because I
Mhm.
didn't deal with
Right,
volunteers
right.
unless they were building something. So, which obviously was Scott. So, anyway, I'm taking my sweater off. It's hot
I know.
here.
I have my sweater on
It's
too,
a-
but I
it's
feel
a
like
sauna.
if I take my sweater off, I'm in like all black and.
I'm in all black too. I started working out with a trainer, and my trainer is hard to get times,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I have a heart out today. Sorry.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
no,
Is
no.
to
it's
go with
totally fine.
my trainer, which I'm going to set an alarm so I can remember.
I actually have to be at home by 11 too because on top of everything else, we had a carbon monoxide leak from our
What?
Oh my gosh! In your house?
Uh-huh.
From
So-
your what?
from our heater.
Oh my gosh!
No
so
way.
all three of us were sick. Like not this last Monday, but a week ago Monday. My girls woke up in the middle of the night. They were throwing up, and
gosh.
I told Christopher, and he was like, at the same time. I was like, yeah, exactly the same time. And he was like, go open the windows and turn off the heater right
wow,
now.
that's amazing. he
And I
thought
was
of it.
like-
And he's
So
in
he
Canada,
thought
right?
of that?
Mhm.
You don't have carbon monoxide sensors in
We
your house?
do, but they had run out of battery,
Oh, wow.
and they hadn't beeped to tell me they were out of battery.
That's weird.
It was weird.
That's defective.
So,
That's
I mean-
crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, they tested it. It wasn't like crazy high, but it was high enough that they're like, you have to replace your heater.
Wow.
I mean, I don't because we rent, but
Okay.
now,
That's crazy. How
$10,000
scary.
later, they have to.
Something like that happened with us. I walked in the house one day and Scott was in the kitchen. I was like, do you have the gas on the stove? And he's like, no. I'm like, I smell gas. And he had been in there not smelling anything. And I'm like, I smell it.
yeah.
So the same kind of thing, we called and they came out and he was like, it's a really small leak. He said he was really surprised I could smell it, but I smelt it the instant I came in the house.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your super mom
But,
senses.
but carbon monoxide doesn't have a smell.
No.
Also, I learned that you have to keep your it's heavier than air. So your carbon monoxide detector should be low.
And
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
They're
but
all in the ceiling.
I know.
And LA code makes you put them in the ceiling. That's
It's
stupid.
like part of the fire detector, right? The smoke
Yeah.
detector
You
slash.
can be a combo.
Yeah.
You can because smoke rises, but carbon monoxide sinks. So by the time it gets up there, you're fucked.
I tell you what, the city of LA for housing is the dumbest thing I've ever dealt with in my life.
Where
That's
are you
dumb.
from?
Georgia. Where are you from?
I'm from Texas, and I'm going to try my hardest not to lapse into the accent that I did not grow up having, but developed after I started selling Stella and Dot.
Why?
Is it
Because
your
my
upline
whole
was
team
Texas?
was
Okay,
Texas.
that makes sense.
And so we would get
Oh.
together, and everybody would be like, "Oh my God, y'all, this is going to be great."
But you didn't talk like that. Where'd
No,
you
I grew up in
Texas?
Houston
Oh, well, that didn't
to
mean anything
Southern
to me.
Californian parents. So I never had an accent. I went to school in Deep East Texas, but like still never had an accent.
But clearly you
But
heard
no.
it your whole life.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
you,
yes.
you heard
So
it.
I'm sure I will lapse into a lilt.
It's
so
funny.
if I, do,
thought
just
you were
comment.
Southern. when
That's
you
I
were
am
young.
Southern, but yeah, not Southern.
yeah.
I'm Texan Southern.
When I was little, people would ask me where my accent was from when we were living in Michigan. I was like, I'm from the same place you're from. But I would say, you want to go downtown? Stuff like that. And then, that adoption episode, I found out my biological family is from like Sioux City, Iowa. So I kind of have a little bit of that kind of thing. But yeah,
Do you think it's just genetic?
genetic, maybe.
Just the way your vocal cords
Yeah,
are shaped.
exactly.
Well,
Maybe
that
with
and
you too.
you were with your mom, your real mom,
Mhm.
until you were, like
1 and a
18
half, yeah,
18
exactly.
months old. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
so
you
there's
definitely
some
heard, yeah.
picking up of
different
probably.
things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know. I was told that your muscles develop from the way you talk. So if it may have been some of those vowel sounds you were making when you were 18 months old that is how your
that's-
muscles
that's
develop,
true,
and then that's
because-
how you say
Well,
it.
you said your first words with her, certainly.
I was going to say that's
Yeah.
true because that's right around when you start talking and stuff, right?
Yeah, so maybe you were saying downtown, mama, downtown.
Right.
That
Or
ice
she- or
cream
she would-
downtown.
Or she would say downtown, and that's just how I thought you said it.
Right?
Downtown.
downtown.
Yes.
Well, what are we talking about today, ladies?
We're talking about cancer.
Yeah.
Cancer.
So fun.
This is my third episode about cancer.
Mm-hmm.
One with you,
Mm-hmm.
one with an author named
Mhm.
Kim Tronick, who wrote a book called Does This Cancer Make My Ass Look Fat? It's a great book. She basically journaled her process through cancer. She had breast cancer. And it was a great book because it was not super heavy, but it was really kind of just informative, but not medically informative. More like, this is what was happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what my brain was processing. This is how I was dealing with this emotionally. This is how I tackled these issues. It was a really cool book for anybody going through chemo, particularly
Mhm.
because she really talked a lot about her, process of chemo, and
Oh, that's good.
she'd wear a costume for her
Mhm.
chemo treatments and made it as kind of joyful as she possibly could, because I don't think many people connect joy with chemotherapy.
Right.
No, they don't.
No.
I did the same thing on my I do that sort of on my Instagram. I've
Oh,
kind
okay.
of tried to make it a little bit more demystified
Right.
so that if somebody wanted, I went live throughout the day over the course of a day, one day when I was having chemo, so that people could see sort of, the different processes and treatments and what happened, how it went first. And so I would sort of walk them through it, and they would access my port, which is this thing in my chest that they can, give me my chemo through. And then, sort of over the course of the day. But it was fascinating to go back and watch it, because at the beginning of the day, I was like, hey, me, it's fall, whatever, let's go, we're having chemo. It's going to be no big deal. Blah, blah. By the end of the day, I'm like, all right, we're done now. And I'm tired. So, I mean, but it definitely, so it could show people that even through it all, it wasn't so terrible that they couldn't get through it themselves.
It's survivable.
Yes.
For sure.
Completely.
I think people really are scared of chemo.
Of course. Well, they
Yeah.
hear the word cancer and they think death. I
Right.
mean, when I tell grown-ups, like, their faces fall, you get the sympathetic head tilt, you get the 15, not even 15 second, the 1 second flash of, oh, there comes that cancer lady. Thank God that's not me.
Mm.
Like, you get
Right.
all, like, just, you could see it on people's faces,
Right.
When I tell kids, they're like, oh, okay. And
Yeah.
they're just like, because they don't have a reference for it necessarily unless they've experienced something.
Mhm.
So it's a very different kind of, and I had to tell my kids, when I told my kids, I was like, okay, well, that's a whole story. Do you want that whole
Yeah, I
story?
want every
mean,
story.
I don't
How old
know.
are your
I
kids?
have the telling my kids story too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
My kids now are 8 and almost 10. So they're just about 2 years apart, 2 girls. And I was diagnosed. In fact, 2 years ago tomorrow, I was diagnosed
With what?
with colon cancer.
Okay.
So
Any colon cancer in your history in your family?
my grandfather had it.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And he got it. They took it out, and then it came back, and he died like a year later. But when they did genetic testing on my tumor, they told me that it was not related. It was considered environmental. So it had to do with environmental is sort of the generic term for we don't know how you got it.
Right.
You know, it doesn't run in your family necessarily, not this kind. So it could be your food, it could be your makeup and the products
you're
that you
putting on your
use,
skin,
it could be your cleaning products, it could be microwave food, it could be plastics, it could be anything.
It could
Like,
be the
they
smog in the air.
It could be
Yeah.
they don't know.
Yeah, I was looking at like the risk factors of colon cancer yesterday, and I was like, I didn't think that you had any really of the risk
No,
factors.
I didn't.
Yeah, just like me with breast cancer, I didn't have any of the risk factors.
What are the risk factors? Do you remember them?
Well, I
That's
mean,
not on my thing I printed
it's,
out.
I think it's, obesity, smoking,
Got it.
sort of your
Mhm.
general
Eating a lot of red meat. I think
eating a
was
lot
on
of
the
red meat,
list.
which I did, but
Did
I
you?
mean,
Probably
you know,
not more than a normal person.
Well, I mean,
don't
you
think
are from
anymore.
Texas.
I am
I
from
mean,
Texas,
come
so
on.
I did have my steak.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't anything. I mean, I had sort of gastrointestinal stuff for years,
Right.
and it was really easy. There's so much to unpack here. It was so easy to just sort of pass it off because I've been having side pain for years and years, and I had this tumor in my liver that was called focal nodular hyperplasia, which is essentially what somebody described it to me as sort of those little red moles that people get.
Yeah.
It's like that on your tumor. I mean,
Yeah,
on your
on
tumor,
your
on
liver.
your liver.
How about
Okay.
that?
So it's just like it's a benign,
Right.
doesn't do anything. And they discovered it like right after I first got married, and they did a biopsy of it, and it was just they said it was that. When I had my first daughter, my first I was going to say oncologist, but that's not who delivers babies.
Obstetrician.
He was like, you're having a C-section. I don't want you pushing. I don't want it to do anything. But my second doctor, because I had a different doctor with my second baby, he was like, there's no way. It's not going to do anything. You're fine. Do you want to have a VBAC? And I was like, oh, no. She's intact. So we're going to just unzip a zipper.
Yeah,
We're going
right.
to take the second one out. So anyway, I had been having these things for years, and then I was having more pain. So they looked at my gallbladder, and it looked like I had a gallstone. So I had my gallbladder out.
Oh, yeah.
And then a few months after that, I started having this really bad lower abdominal pain, but it seemed to be related to what I was eating. If I ate something like a croissant or something really buttery and something that I didn't eat very
not
often.
having your gallbladder could kind of cause some of that too.
Exactly.
Because I had to
So-
have mine out also.
Yeah. So it was like I didn't connect that
Right,
would
right.
be anything ominous. I was like, okay, well, Allie, you can't eat that stuff anymore. And then one day I went to the bathroom, and we're going to talk a lot about poop today. So
I love poop talk.
We're talking about poop. So I went to the bathroom and I wiped, and you check it out to make sure that you're clean, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there was blood on the toilet paper, and I was like, oh, well, that's
What's
not
that?
good.
Yeah.
So it was like 10:30 at night. So I called the health hotline of my health insurance.
Yeah.
So the nurse hotline. And I was like, hey, I just found blood. What do I do? And she's like, is it still bleeding? And I was like, no, it was just the one. She's like, okay, well, just watch it. Is it, do you have hemorrhoids?
Right.
And I was like, well, I have 2 children. Of course I have hemorrhoids,
Who doesn't?
Who
lady?
doesn't? I mean,
Right.
come on.
Come
It's
on.
the latest thing. So she was like, okay, it's probably just a burst hemorrhoid. It's not bleeding anymore. Just keep an eye on it. She did not tell me you should go to the doctor tomorrow. She didn't even tell, she just said, just keep an eye on it. So every once in a while, I would have nothing ever as spectacular as that first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just have a little bit. So I chalked it up to the hemorrhoids. So then fast forward to a little over a year later, and I just had this episode where I was doubled over, throwing up. I thought it was the same thing, but usually it went away in about 4 hours because it seemed to be related to digestion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't go away. It was like a year. It was like a day.
Yeah.
So my husband had gone out of town, And I was like, Mom, I gotta go to the emergency room. So I go to urgent care, and then they send me to the emergency room because they're like, we can't do the imaging here. It's too late in the day. So I go to the emergency room, and this like, I don't know, 12-year-old physician's assistant, a resident, I don't know. In my mind, in the hallway before she walks in, they're like, okay, Becky, you got to start telling people bad news. And she's like, with her right now, I got to do it right now.
Oh my God.
And they're like, yep, you got to do it. And so she walks in. I mean, that's my, and she's like, so they found suspicious,
oh my God.
suspicious something in your colon. And I was like, what? Suspicious thickening. That's what she said. Suspicious thickening in your colon. I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And she's like, I was like, does that mean I might have cancer? And she's like, I'm so sorry.
Oh my
And
God.
she starts crying. She puts her hand on
my
my knee,
God.
and I'm consoling her.
Right.
It's
Oh,
so absurd.
boy.
I'm crying. Like, it's a whole thing. So then that was like February. So by the time I got, I was on an HMO at the time. So I had to get, permission. I said, see my regular doctor, get approval to see a gastroenterologist, get approval to have the colonoscopy. The colonoscopy was March 12th, 2018. And I come out and they're like, yeah, you have, at that point, they thought it was stage 2, which is, so stages, these are the stages of cancer. Stage 1 is it's just in one organ. Stage 2 is it has breached the organ wall. Stage 3, it's in lymph nodes. Stage 4, it's moved to another organ.
Got it.
I think. I might be switching 2 and 3, but I believe that's what it is.
Well, mine was 2, but it hadn't spread to lymph nodes, but
Right,
it was
okay.
bigger than a certain size, I think, is
Yeah.
why, with breast cancer.
I see.
Yeah. And it was it was invasive
Right.
and non-invasive both.
Yeah. So, so I was like, we're supposed to go to Hawaii in 3 days. What do we do?
Maybe
It's spring break.
not go to Hawaii.
Oh, no. We went to Hawaii.
You did.
My doctor was like, nothing's going to happen in a week. Go to Hawaii.
Right.
My French surgeon was like, oh, you cannot go. It's very dangerous. You have to, no, I'm not comfortable. And I was like, and then he was like, okay, I looked. The University of Hawaii is very good, but I don't want you to have an emergency surgery. So just drink a lot of Maalox. So I literally, like the whole time, I'm mainlining Maalox.
Oh my God.
I'm not really eating very much. We tell the girls that I have a tumor. We don't say cancer because they
Right.
don't know the word cancer. It doesn't mean anything to them, really.
How old were they then?
They were 6 and 8, I guess, or 6 and almost 8. So we go to Hawaii. We have sort of a lovely time. And then we come back and I have surgery and they check my liver. He looks at my liver visually.
Right.
He's like, I don't see anything. You seem to be fine. We were like, great. We got it all.
Awesome.
There was some in my lymph nodes. So we knew at that point it was stage 3, but like we took out 15. It was in 2. We got all of that and we thought we were good. And then a little bit later, a couple weeks later, I had a PET scan and they found that the tumor that was in my liver, exactly the same place, had, first of all, not been present on the images when they did my gallbladder. And second of all, had now come back in the same place, but was cancer.
Wow.
And then there was a little like blip in my lung that they were like, sort of, it's enough to get you in the club. So we're going to do 12 rounds of chemo. And we're going to do 5 rounds of radiation on this lung thing just to make sure that it's dead and it doesn't do anything. So we did 9 rounds of chemo, this crazy whole combination that like, it's called, there's FOLFIRI and there's FOLFOX, which is like there are 2 different regimens that are recommended that are most common for colon cancer.
Didn't one of your
No,
didn't one of your
uh-uh.
didn't one of your
I don't have
chemos
anything to say on this. I mean,
didn't
no.
one of your chemos have like platinum in it or something?
Yes, there's a
crazy?
drug called oxaliplatin, which is oxaliplatin. So I was on oxaliplatin, irinotecan, and another one that's aptly named 5FU.
right.
That's very appropriate.
And so I was on those 3, and the oxaliplatin has this really sort of yucky and interesting side effect that you can't touch anything cold after you have it. It makes you super, super sensitive to cold. So you can't eat anything cold. It feels like prickles, like almost like glass. You know?
Wow.
And you know, and you can't touch, you can't like handle anything out of the fridge. It's really painful. And and then you can get neuropathy in your fingers and toes, which I still have.
What is neuropathy?
It's when you lose the sensation in
It's like
your
nerve
It's nerve damage.
Yeah.
will it will it go away?
In theory, yes,
Yeah.
but my feet are still. It feels like I have sand in my socks all the time.
Oh my God, that would drive me nuts.
It's I mean, it's all the fun things. But I mean, it's not debilitating.
yeah. The alternative is not okay.
Yeah,
So We'll take the
exactly.
sand in
Right.
the feet.
I feel like whenever I complain about a side effect, my oncologist is like, "But you don't have cancer,"
right.
you know?
Right.
I'm like, yeah.
So I
Does
mean,
he also go wah wah?
I know.
Well, for me, I have my checkups in the same place I did chemo. So there's that part of me that when I walk in now, instead of going left to chemo, I go right to the checkup room. So when I'm in there trying to think of things to complain about, I know that there are people just down the hall that, our chemo is their life and death.
Right.
So yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of puts it in perspective for sure.
I would imagine.
It
Mhm.
does. So so I did 9 rounds, and then I got like a ulcerative colitis, which is basically when you have it's basically like a skinned intestine. So it's like an abrasion in your
Yeah.
intestine. So they took me off it, and then they redid the imaging, and they were like, okay, well, everything's the lung thing seems to be dead, and your liver thing is small enough that now we feel like it's okay, we can take it out.
Oh.
So I went in and had surgery in October of 2018. And then at that point, it was considered NED, which is the new remission. They don't call it remission anymore. They call it NED, which stands for no evidence of disease.
Oh, okay.
So I was NED. And then I had 3 more rounds of chemo to finish up. So I started that up again in January of 2019 and finished that out. And then I went on immunotherapy called Keytruda, which is one of those drugs that you hear on the commercials that has like the list of scary side effects, which I didn't get any of those, but it
Oh,
also
that's
didn't
good.
work
Mm.
because my cancer came back in
No.
September of 2019. My numbers started going up. They measure a protein level in your blood called CEA,
Mhm.
which interestingly is it's a protein that your body produces when you're pregnant that tells your body not to attack the fetus.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
So it's sort of the cancer kind of masquerades as like, oh, I'm something you're not
I'm a
supposed to.
baby.
I'm like a good thing. Don't attack me.
How crazy.
So my CEA levels went up, and they had been like normal people walking around up to 2.5 is fine. So, but mine had been like 0.5, 0.8, like when I was on the chemo. The first time I went back, and it was like 1.8, I think, and it hadn't been that high. And since I started, I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
I do a
something's
blood
up.
test every 6 months. It's CA29, I think, or
Mhm.
CA27. But yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It measures this protein, and it tells you if their breast cancer has come back someplace or not.
just by the
and-
protein. Wow.
yeah,
that's-
yeah.
that's
And I
pretty
think one of the
impressive.
tests that I have to do before my surgery coming up is the one for ovarian cancer.
Mhm.
So there are a couple, a couple of tests that he's going to do to check and make sure. And he's going to do more genetic testing and stuff because I found out a little bit more about biological family, like we
Yeah.
talked about before. I have a pancreatic cancer and a type of melanoma
Mhm.
in my dad's side.
Mhm.
And my aunt was just diagnosed with breast cancer. So I was the first on maternal side, but now she has it too.
Yeah.
So now I have to do like those testing also.
Right.
It's fascinating to me, though,
Mhm.
because they genetically type your tumor, not just to see if you're genetically predisposed
Mhm.
to get certain kinds of cancers, but also the specific genetic makeup of your tumor. So they know, oh, this tumor, this kind of growing tumor, we can use this kind of chemo for. Now that it's back, I'm on 2 drugs. One is a pill form of the 5-FU, which is called Xeloda, that is just a regular chemo. And the other thing I'm on is a biologic drug called Avastin, which attacks the vascular systems of the tumor and basically starves the
Starves
tumor.
it, yeah.
But it's fascinating to me
Mhm.
that they know, like, okay, well, we're going to try this thing because we know that this kind of tumor responds well to this specific. So they can be more focused with the chemo. It used to be they just sort of set off a bomb inside of you and hope
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
best. But I think that's why, even with stage 4 cancer, the survival rates for colon cancer, stage 4 colon cancer, the survival rates are good.
That's good.
Right.
So
I think they are for colon cancer
in general.
in general.
Yes.
But, this is why, if you desire, you should donate to cancer research.
Mhm.
Because without cancer research, they would never have discovered how to attack this from a genetic perspective. I
Right.
don't think.
Right. And
You
all
know,
the immune therapies and stuff. I mean, those are so important. I think that's the future of it for sure.
I
Mhm.
agree with
Yeah,
you.
your
I
body
heard something
fighting
on
it.
NPR about how they treated cancer in the 1800s. And I guess they had discovered they had a cancer patient who also had strep throat. And the strep throat infection was so intense that cancer patient's immune system kicked into overdrive and the cancer shrunk.
Huh.
So then they thought, well, how do we kick the immune system into overdrive? So they started, I may be misquoting this. I heard it when my aunt died of ovarian cancer. And I heard it when she was ill with it, which was probably 7 years ago. So I'm probably massively misquoting this. But what I remember them saying was they would actually give cancer patients strep throat to treat cancer because it would kick their immune system into overdrive. And it was somewhat effective. It was, I'm sure, more like setting off a bomb in your body and hoping for the best. I'm sure it didn't work for everybody, but I thought that was really fascinating that even back then they had figured out the immune system being boosted. It was an effective treatment for some cancer patients. And I felt like they left that. Like chemo
Yeah,
showed
right.
up and that went, oh, chemo works so much better.
Right.
Forget the immune. And now they've remembered it again or discovered it or whatever, however.
they're
research-
training
evolved.
Your, your immune system to recognize and fight it.
Yeah.
So for me, the Keytruda immunotherapy didn't work, but that doesn't mean another immunotherapy
Right.
wouldn't necessarily work. It's just, a matter of finding the right cocktail
Mm-hmm.
for what keeps you going. And the longer you keep going, the more there were advances even between the first time I did chemo and when I restarted it.
Right.
There was an anti-nausea drug that used to be like, I would get a drip that would take another 15 minutes or 30 minutes of my chemo time because I would be there for, 6 hours
Right.
getting the different chemos. So they would have to do this drip of this anti-nausea drug. And then they discovered that they call it a push. So it was like in a syringe and they would just sort of push it into the IV and they could do it that way. But that was an innovation that happened even just between
It's amazing.
April of 2018 and January of 2019.
That's amazing. In less than
So-
a year.
Yeah, like things are changing and getting better all the time.
That's so hopeful.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's really hopeful.
And a lot of doctors are embracing Eastern medicine again, which I think is so important
I
because it's
agree.
not just about the chemo. You have to change everything. You have to change your mindset. You have to start meditating. You have to start doing having some kind of spiritual practice. I'm not telling people that they have to go to church at all because I don't go to church, but I definitely took a moment to sort of consider my partnership with the divine and what that means for me and who I and how the divine kind of manifests itself in me and what I can do to kind of control the things that I can control, with things like yoga and meditation and prayer or whatever that is for you. I mean, some meditation and prayer can be the same thing. I discovered Kundalini yoga, which is sort of it's not as physical a yoga. It's more of a movement based meditation, mantra based yoga. And there's just different Kundalini mantras and there's different movements that you do that are meant to sort of
Align your chakras.
align your chakras, but also, sort of rid the body of certain
Energy.
energies and
Yeah.
emotions and
Totally.
things like that. And I mean,
Life changing.
life changing
Yeah.
for me, truly.
Yeah, it is amazing.
And I mean, they were the reaction that I had. I mean, the fact that my cancer was gone as fast as it was, they didn't have an explanation for it.
Right.
And I was like, you got to do both. You got to
Yeah,
do
you
both.
I agree with you. There's this great book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. It's a very old book. Do you know this book?
I love Louise Hay. I have like a deck of Louise Hay cards that I pull out.
That book, she wrote that book. I guess she became a healer after she healed herself basically from cancer, because she thought my toxic thoughts, even the subconscious thoughts, are causing illness in my body. So I have cancer. I'm going to treat cancer medically, but I have to change my toxic thinking or it's just going to come back. So she started figuring out how to do that. She wrote this book. I read this book in probably 1990. So, and I think it was not a new book then. It's a book that's still on the shelf in every Barnes and Noble. It's still very popular because she really writes the book the way you should be talking to yourself. So she'll say, I deserve happiness. Like that's how it's written. So as you're reading it, it's as if you're saying that to yourself. It's a really powerful book.
Oh, cool. I'm going to have to get it.
She also in the book lists maladies and what energetically causes those maladies, and then how you can change your thinking to address that malady, which I thought was really fascinating also because they kind of make sense. You know, if you have a problem with the knee, you have a fear of moving forward. Okay, well, you can't move forward very effectively if your knee's out. That makes sense to me. So she kind of, a lot of it's very kind of commonsensical and new agey and
it is super new agey. I think there is, you know, like I said, there's this balance of doing both. And somebody brought up to me recently, sort of not to counter all of this, but just something to be mindful of is getting or not being able to cure yourself of cancer suddenly becomes a character flaw. Because suddenly if you're not able to do it, if you can't, because I worry about this, if I don't do it right, if I haven't somehow channeled the right kind of energy, if I'm not, you know, meditating right, if I'm not speaking positively to myself all the time, am I doing it wrong? Is it going to come back? Is it somehow something that is a character flaw? And that's just one of those, I think, part of the sort of great unknown about all of it, the why, the how. But I think there is a bit of that danger in, like I said, in considering it a character flaw.
Well, I know
to not be able to rid yourself of it.
Right. And I mean, that's one thing after having breast cancer and stuff, you know, I thought a lot about like, is it going to come back? Is it going to come back? Is it going to come back? And then now, you know, I have this thing on my ovary and I'm like, oh, did I do that? You know, did I worry so much about it coming back that it is coming back? You know, so I think that's like something that I know that I need to work on more. I tried yoga and I would just find myself laying there thinking about what I need to do when I leave this class.
Your to-do list.
Yeah. So I need to figure something out. And there's only, what did he say, like a 10% chance that this is cancer, but they won't know until I have my surgery.
So explain a little more so people listening, because everybody knows you.
Right.
So what's happening?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so, I mean, I've been on the tamoxifen for 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. And after I saw my oncologist the last time for my checkup, I started having some spotting that really I shouldn't have had because of, so I was pregnant, then I was nursing, then I had chemo, and then I was on tamoxifen. So it kind of pushed my body into menopause, basically. So, you know, I hadn't had a cycle except for the random one here and one there for years. So I knew that when this was happening, that this was something unusual. And so I did go to the doctor and she sent me for an ultrasound. And then I went to a gynecologist specialist, and he did a biopsy of my uterus. And that was talking about the thickening and stuff. That can be a side effect of tamoxifen, but it's with your uterus can thicken. And I guess it's supposed to be like 3 millimeters and mine was 12.
Whoa.
That's very thick.
Yeah.
That's hardy.
Yeah. I was like,
that's a hardy uterus.
Exactly. So, and so he did a biopsy of that, and he did a biopsy of a polyp that he found. And apparently, I guess this polyp was being pushed out of my cervix, and that's what probably could have caused some of the spotting and stuff like that. So he took that and biopsied that, and both of those have been negative, which is good.
That is good.
But then he did another ultrasound to check out the cyst in my uterus, and he also checked the lining again, and the lining just from the end of January to I think somewhere in February, he measured it at 16 millimeters. So I was like, okay, so is it getting thicker? Are these things getting bigger? And he sent me for another ultrasound to check my ovary. And he said that it had grown a little bit. The thing on my ovary had grown a little bit from the first ultrasound to that last ultrasound. So he's like, well, I could do the surgery, but now we're going to have to go in and we're going to have to check out that ovary. So he sent me to a gynecological oncologist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I have to concentrate on saying that word.
It's
Gynecological oncologist.
a tongue twister.
Yeah, exactly. And so that now I'm going to have, they're going to remove the ovary and they're going to biopsy it. And then they're going to do the other things to clean out all of the uterus and the cysts and stuff like that. But they won't know for sure if it's cancer or not until they actually get in there and do it. So I'll go to sleep not knowing, and I'll wake up. Either I'll wake up with just having my ovary removed in a fallopian tube, or I'll wake up having had like a full-on hysterectomy.
Wow.
And then having to go like back to chemo and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that it's, even if it is cancer, that they're catching it early enough that it won't be too dangerous. But I'm still, 10% is, I feel like, a good number. But, you know, breast cancer, it was only a 20% chance. And then with the hematoma that I had after one of my surgeries, that was like a 1% chance. So I'm like, I feel like I win the lotteries that nobody wants to win. So, you know, when I wake up and I hear it wasn't cancer, then I think that's when I can relax a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know, for
Do you
now,
know when the surgery is?
yeah, it's the end of April.
End of April.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, it was funny because the first date that they gave me as a possibility was April 15th. And I'm like, oh, that's my birthday. And I already spent my birthday in the hospital with one of my reconstructive surgeries and stuff. And granted, it was a great birthday because I woke up from surgery. You know, I was like, this is the worst. And then I woke up and I'm like, this is the best.
Right?
But yeah, and Scott's going to be out of town for 3 weeks. They're doing a sequel to Dead Season, that zombie movie that he did. So
That's awesome.
we were talking about that earlier. He's in get in shape mode. So he's been like working out twice a day and running because he's going to be, it's like,
well, that's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
Your husband's in good
Never
shape.
toss, never a bad
shirtless
thing.
mode. Yeah,
I know
exactly.
he showed his tummy on
Yeah.
Facebook. I was like, holy cow, he has a legit washboard stomach.
Nice.
That's
Mhm,
crazy.
mhm.
Mhm.
You never know
course.
what's under those clothes, do you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's great for him. But then I'm on the opposite where I've like gained 10 pounds since taking tamoxifen. So he's like getting all in shape. And I'm just like, you know,
It's a weird
nothing
thing to
I'm
feel
doing.
jealous of your spouse, isn't
Right?
it?
Right?
I deal with that a lot because my husband we have a production company and we make films, and he does a lot of work in Vancouver. So he's up in Vancouver and it's a beautiful city and he's like exploring the city and he's living his kid-free. He's living his life. Now he is up there and he is missing us and
Right.
feeling like, did I abandon them? You know, I'm not with them. Am I doing my job? Am I doing, you know, so he has
Is this
his
the right
own
choice?
thing.
like
Yeah.
that?
Like, he's not, it's not like he's up there just footloose and fancy free. But from my perspective, it's still like, you know, this isn't something that affects you on a daily basis
Mhm.
in the same way. I mean, he
Right.
thinks about it all the time, of course. I don't want to belittle his own experience with it, but like, I do feel jealous that he just gets to be up there and, you know, work on building our business and have these meetings and make movies. And, you know, it's just not the same. And it's just a weird thing to feel envious of your spouse in that way.
Mhm.
Just
Of their
you know,
freedom, you mean?
of their freedom.
Your perceived their freedom?
Yes,
Because
my
you
perception
perceive it as
of-
freedom,
right.
but it may not actually be freedom.
Right.
It may not be as free as you think. I know.
He doesn't consider it that at all.
No. Well, you know, my husband travels too. I don't know if you know what my husband does. He's a stand-up comedian. So he's never home. And we talk about this all the time. I'm never jealous of him because I would never want his life. There's no way I would want that life ever. But I do get frustrated when he comes home and explodes in the house and then leaves.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
has no accountability for the tornado he's just caused in my house. When in my brain I have to go, you know, he is working so hard. He is busting his ass. He is like literally burning the candle at every end. And I need to just not be upset by that. I don't get jealous of him, but I get angry. I have to shift my perspective and say, this isn't never been in his wheelhouse to be a clean person. So you have to expect it when he shows up. But like this morning, the closet vomited into our bathroom. And I was like, what happened? And then he today was like, I worked so hard. I'm not even here to put my laundry away. So if you don't put my laundry away, it just piles up. The underlayer of that is when he comes home, he explodes his stuff in the closet and I can't get to the places to put his laundry away. And then I tantrum and go, fuck you. You should have cleaned this up. I can't even reach where your pants go. So now I have to clean up the mess you made so that I can put your laundry away.
Scott does his own now.
He does? I wish.
Yeah.
Oh, see, we're exactly the opposite because Christopher is such a neat freak. Like the house is just, his place up in Vancouver is immaculate.
Right.
And when he's home, our house is so much cleaner. And it used to be on reentry because he's traveled our whole marriage for various things, either filmmaking or acting when he was still acting or whatever it was. So we would always have this sort of reentry period because I would get into a rhythm with the girls.
Yeah.
And
we call it that too. Reentry. Yeah.
And we wouldn't, I just don't see mess in the same way that he does. Like a pile of papers doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
If the floor hasn't been swept in a couple of days, well, now it bothers me because he broke me. But it used to not bother me. So he would come home and he would get really frustrated because he would see these piles and he would see, a mess in places that I didn't see a mess. And so then we would have to kind of get back in together. Now we've kind of worked out a bit more of a system. He understands, he's just gotten a little more relaxed about, I think cancer also makes you kind of
put
not
things in
sweat
perspective.
The small stuff
Right.
as much.
I would
because
imagine.
It's like, well, if there's a speck of dust on the floor, that's fine because here's my wife and she's here and she's not sick anymore and all of that. So I think that adjusted it as well. And just us, we've been married for 12 years. I don't know. What year is it? What year did I get married? It doesn't matter. Like 12 years, something like that.
Long enough.
Long enough. That now we kind of, the reentry isn't as harsh.
Right.
Because we've both kind of adjusted to that. But yeah, I don't know what the point of that.
Doesn't matter.
Re-entry and spouses out of town, being jealous of your spouse, all of that stuff. But yeah, it's just been really interesting to
So here's a question about
that.
why you're going through cancer.
Uh-huh.
Did you have any resentment or negativity toward healthy people?
Oh, all the time.
You did?
Oh, all the time. I would walk around and I would just be like, in fact, I was in Home Goods in September before I was re-diagnosed when it was like my therapist calls it, I was in the hallway because I was waiting. Waiting. So I was in the hallway. And so I'm in Home Goods and I'm looking around and I was like, fuck these people. All these people, they were just healthy. They're just walking around. They can just live their lives. And I'm like, I don't need this. I don't want this Thanksgiving. Live, laugh, love. Fuck that. I'm not thankful for anything. It was a whole thing, crying. And of course, all of these people, I don't know anything about them.
Right.
They could very well be going through, everybody has something.
They could all be in the hallway.
Right.
I don't know. But in my mind, yes, completely. Look around, like all of you, and still now, like you all just get to live your lives. Like everybody has like worries. All parents worry,
Totally.
like, what if I'm not there for my kids someday?
Yeah.
But it's all ethereal. It's all, sort of just in that nebulous
It's
what
abstract.
if. It's abstract.
Yeah.
That's the word I want. That's another thing that happens with chemo is you lose all your words, which for a writer
Me
is
too.
a tricky
I forget
thing.
people's names. That's
All
a
the
big thing
time.
with me.
Yeah, that's something Kim said also, the other lady I did.
Chemo brain.
Kim.
But I think I have a theory about chemo brain. I'm not sure that it's actually the chemo or just that like a chunk of your brain is always thinking about cancer. So you're never 100% anywhere
present.
Right.
because there's always a little running something.
Right.
And every once in a while, I'll be doing something and I'll remember. So I'll know that I will have been, I forgot for a minute.
Right.
But it's never for more than a few minutes at a time that then I have that like kick in and whatever. So I think chemo brain is just also related to your brain being distracted all the time
Right.
because you're just like, what if it comes back? What is that pain? Is
Right.
that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Is this, my hip is hurting.
Right.
I'm like, is there cancer in my bone?
Right.
And they're like,
That
that's
was the
not a
same-
thing.
Yeah, I had a pain in my foot, and it went on for a couple of weeks, and I'm like, I don't remember doing anything to my foot. And then I went to the doctor, and I'm thinking to myself, can you get cancer in your foot? And he's like, you have plantar fasciitis. And I'm like, okay, now do I feel silly and old?
Right. I
Now
got
do I have to
bursitis or something in my
I
hip.
need some orthotics. That's all I
Exactly.
need. Some orthotics.
Roll your foot on some ice, and you'll be okay.
That's
Right.
crazy. I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'm glad the dumpster is banging in the background, but I would imagine a lot of people feel resentment for healthy people. I think I would. I would feel very resentful that nobody
Well, I think-
understands my
Yeah,
burden.
I think it's similar
sort
to
of.
when like a close family member dies suddenly.
Yeah.
And you go to the grocery store. I remember that happening when my brother passed away, and going to the grocery store and looking around and being so angry, like, how can these people go on like the world is okay when my brother just died?
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
I think it's similar when you have cancer. You look around and you're like, don't they know,
Yeah.
you know, this horrible thing that's happening?
Especially this time
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have any outward symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I lost all my hair and I could walk around and I'd be like, oh, that's cancer lady. It's two sets of problems because one, when you're the cancer lady, then you get the sympathetic head tilt
Yeah.
and the flash of thank God it's not me. And the, just people don't know what to say and they don't know what to do. And they give you 1,000 mugs and things that say fuck cancer. And I'm here to tell you that PSA, we don't need any mugs or tea. We got it
Right.
covered. We have all the mugs and tea. All we need
That's
is
funny.
just like, how are you?
What was
without-
helpful for you during this process?
Was hopeful for me?
Helpful. 'Cause
Helpful.
She had told us several things that was helpful for them when they were going through this process. People, having a meal train.
Yes, meal trains are great. Anytime somebody says to you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to come over and do your laundry, I'm going to bring you a meal, I'm going to pick up your kids, I'm going to take your kids to the movies, whatever it is, but they tell you what they're going to do. They don't say, what can I do?
Right.
Because that puts a burden on you to think of
Ah,
something
very
that they can
smart.
do.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. Like, even if you bring over, like find out what they like to eat and bring them a little something healthy. Don't bring crap because they're suddenly, I certainly was all of a sudden very aware of what I was putting in my body. And, of course I'm grateful for every meal or whatever that people
Sure.
brought over. But like, if I could tell people in advance, bring something healthy, bring something vegan. Because even if they're not vegan, they will appreciate a meal and being vegan, it will be clean and all of that.
Mhm.
But, I'm going to anything as long as you tell them what you're going to do.
Right.
Just recently, I had a friend. I'm directing the musical at my kid's school because I don't have anything else to do in my life. It's this weekend. Xanadu Jr. It's going to be great.
Xanadu Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Shut
That'll be
up.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Are
It's
there
gonna be-
roller skates?
There are no roller skates. I
Oh,
had to
man.
promise the principal that there would be no roller skating
Oh,
because she was very worried about the roller skating. So there are no roller skates, but there is plenty of glitter and ELO music.
I
And
love it.
the kids are playing in a live band. And
Amazing.
It's going to be amazing.
I love Xanadu the
So-
movie.
Oh, yes.
We almost
for sure.
named this room Manadu.
Oh, well, there you go.
I was going to have it painted outside. Manadu.
That's funny. That's
So,
awesome.
and now I
That's
lost my
great.
train of thought. What was I talking about?
Sorry. You were
Um,
saying.
Oh, my friend. So I'm directing this thing, and she was like, I'm coming to help you with rehearsal one day. I'm not taking no. I know you need help. I know you're overwhelmed.
I'm
Just
coming.
tell me the day.
Mhm.
I'm coming.
Yeah.
So it was just like that kind of stuff. That's super helpful. I did get a lot of really delicious fluffy blankets, which I personally loved. I got a lot of them. So, but if you're looking for
Mhm.
something, I think, a knit hat is always a nice thing to
Mhm.
get. Or something consumable like food or whatever, because
I had
it-
friends donate to a cleaning company.
yes.
So I had credit, so I could have someone come and clean
Yes.
the house once a week.
Yes.
because I had all these surgeries and I couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something I think a lot of people didn't think about. People think about the food and stuff, but then here I am sitting in my house thinking I can't carry things, I can't do
Yeah.
this and that and the other thing, and I can't scrub the tub. So that was really, really helpful.
There is an organization that
Cleaning
provides
for a cause. They do
cleaning for a cause.
4. Yeah.
But they're
Mhm.
like booked up. I looked into it.
Oh,
What's it
They're-
called?
It's
Cleaning
called
for a cause.
Cleaning for a cause.
Yeah.
and
Interesting.
it's house cleaners who volunteer to come in and clean your house,
Mhm.
and which is while you have cancer. It's specifically for cancer patients.
Right.
But there are actually a lot of organizations that are really kind of dedicated to providing support services for cancer patients. And actually one of them is the Foundation for Living Beauty, which I think is
Oh, right.
the organization
the
that
one? Okay.
that I want to support.
Okay. That
So-
actually works out really well. We're going to do a Beauty Counter online pop-up, and the proceeds we're going to donate to this organization. It actually sounds like it'll fit really well with the Beauty
Yeah.
Counter, as a company.
It
So
does.
you can-
It does. So the Foundation for Living Beauty was created by a woman. I'm blanking on her name. Sorry, but chemo is real. Her mother had breast cancer, and she created this group to be a support system for women that was kind of nurturing and allowing women to explore alternative healing modalities and really getting that second source of support. So they have all kinds of really amazing yoga retreats and this goddess wellness retreat where you go for 4 days to this
That's awesome.
place in Malibu. It's like it's a monastery in Malibu.
Oh, I think I've been
Wow.
there. I think I've walked around that.
It's a
place.
beautiful place.
Mhm.
Anybody can go, and it is called something that I'm not going to remember because
Chemo brain.
chemo brain, and also just on the spot, I won't remember what it's called. But it's in Malibu, and if you look up, it's a Franciscan friars retreat. If you Google
Interesting.
those two things, I'm sure it would come
Mhm.
up. But it was 4 days of meditation, essential oils, eating workshops, a sound bath. That's another thing I highly recommend.
Yeah?
Sound bath.
What is a sound bath?
I've heard the phrase too. And I'm
Oh
always
my
like,
gosh.
No idea what that
Y'all,
is.
It is glorious. So a sound bath is when you lay and you meditate, and I don't know what they call themselves, an artist or a yogi, but a sound bath person, a healer, maybe
Yeah.
they would call themselves. They have an array of specifically tuned instruments, bowls, usually either a crystal bowl or sometimes, the metal bowl you've seen, or
Yep.
chimes. They have this beautiful thing that's called an ocean drum.
Mm.
That's like a rain stick, but it's wide and flat, like it's round and wide and flat, and you tilt it from side to side and it sounds like the ocean. So your body is receiving all of these healing, soothing, beautiful tones, and they're all designed to have a specific effect on the body, and you come out of it just feeling rejuvenated and refreshed and relaxed, and like it's lovely. And there are lots of places that do it. There are people that do private sound baths. I go to the Yogi Tree. I don't know if I can shout them out,
Yeah,
but
totally.
the Yogi Tree Center for Growth, and they have sound baths
Oh,
there. And usually my Kundalini classes will end with a short meditation and sound bath there. But anyway, so yeah, like sound baths, amazing. I highly recommend. And then this organization, so we had all these lovely things, and so but they also did like this essential oil workshop that I got to go to, and this woman came in and taught us all about essential oils. She gave us a bunch of samples so I could go home and like really see what kind of essential oils were effective for me. One of them was really great for sleep.
Ooh.
If I don't have to take something for sleep,
Yeah.
it's so much better. I've been taking Ativan, but like Ativan makes me super
Oh,
emo.
It makes me sad. Ativan
Yes,
does. Yeah,
it's
I
a
found that
dark.
out. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't take it for more than a day. It helps with nausea also.
It does.
That's what I would try to take it for, was nausea. But then I noticed if I took it for more than a day or two, I'd suddenly feel really sad.
yes.
How
Yeah.
crazy.
Super dark. You go
Yeah.
there. It's a very dark place. Like,
Interesting.
but coming off of Ativan, because I think it affects your serotonin levels.
Probably. Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
But it does help. It did help me sleep.
oh
but,
yes, it
yeah.
will put you right to sleep. It's a delicious way. The going to sleep is great. The next day,
Right.
you're like, why is everything so hard? It's so dark.
I think mine was.
Why can't I go back to sleep?
Exactly.
So, what oil helped you with sleep?
Well, it's a blend that she
Ah,
does. So
okay.
unfortunately, I can't
Don't know.
say because it's secret.
So,
But
were you in therapy during the process of, or any kind of counseling?
Not the first time, but
Okay.
this time
Yeah.
I am. because what happened was I kicked it.
Yep.
I was good. And
Yep.
I went right back to all the old ways. I stopped meditating. We spent the summer in Vancouver, and I made some lovely friends who were so much fun, but they were like, you want a glass? Have a glass. Let's have a glass of wine.
Yeah, of course.
And that glass it would end up being like 2 bottles.
Yeah.
Like, and it was great fun. We had the best time. But then I would find myself just being angry and like, I don't know. I was jealous of Christopher because he's like working and I'm just there with the kids. And normally I'm a woman who works and I wasn't doing anything. So like being a full-time mom was a tough gig.
Yeah, it is.
And I didn't know anybody in Vancouver. And I just ended up, I just fell off the wagon completely.
Off in a ditch a bit, sounds like. There's off
Yes,
in a ditch.
off in a ditch. Totally off in a ditch. And so I was angry. I was drinking. I wasn't eating as well. All the things. And sure enough, in September, it was back. So this time I'm like, I got to figure out, first of all, if my anger is a contributing factor, I got to figure out how to manage that.
Right.
I need to figure out how to manage the guilt. If I'm, like I was talking about earlier, am I doing this right? If I think negative thoughts, am I going to give myself cancer again? I had to deal with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, it's time. I got to go back to therapy, or I've been in therapy before, but not for cancer.
Right.
So I started doing therapy.
Has it helped you?
I think so. There have been some good things that we've talked about. She does a thing. She tells me to do a thing that's like, where are my feet? If I start to panic, if I start to get really like in my head, just taking stock of the actual physicality of that's happening right now. What are the sensations that I'm feeling? Just sort of takes you out of it.
Right.
I'm sitting on this couch. I can feel the leather. My arm is a little sweaty, so I'm sort of sticking to the leather a little bit. My feet are a little tingly, but I can feel my boots. My feet are sandy. Whatever it is that I'm feeling, but just specifically to that moment, it can kind of take you out of it a little bit. The other thing that I've just started doing that I'm loving is when I start getting ready for bed, I light a candle and I do all of my, I take my CBD THC, I do my face, I breathe in my essential oils. I pick my nighttime meditation that I'm going to go to sleep to. I get all that stuff set up. And the very last thing I do, turn out my light. And then I started saying, I release the worries of the day and I blow out the candle. So it's like,
cool.
It goes with the flame.
It goes with the flame and the smoke. And it's
That's
like
great.
Releasing it into the ether. And that was, the candle thing was something that she recommended doing, which I'm really loving doing.
That sounds very Louise Hay.
It is very Louise Hay.
That's very Louise Hay.
And she is not a very Louise Hay therapist.
No.
But
that particular
thing really resonated with me.
I just listened to this podcast. I talked about this yesterday on the podcast I recorded yesterday. It's called The Happiness Project.
Oh.
Have you heard this podcast?
Oh, yes. That is Gretchen Rubin.
No, that's a different one. That's called The Happiness.
No, that's Happiness.
No.
It's not?
No, this is a professor at Yale.
Oh, well, then is this Sean whatever?
No, that's the Happiness Advantage, because that was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I have his book.
The
He was Harvard.
Project?
He was.
I think it's The Happiness Project.
Sean Archer.
Sean Archer. But Gretchen Rubin is the happiness
something. She is the happiness something also.
Okay.
Yeah.
This whatever is the happiness something.
Okay.
And it's a professor at Yale.
Okay.
And she I have to really pay attention because it's sorry to be not all positive, but I get bored and I drift off.
Mhm.
But so it's like listening to a professor,
Sure.
right? So then at a certain point I start thinking about other things, but the information she's giving me is really great. So I have to really focus when I'm listening to it. So there was another professor at Yale. Happiness Lab.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, you're right.
Happiness
Happiness
Lab.
Project is Gretchen Rubin.
Okay. I was
Happiness
like,
Lab. You're right. I'm wrong. Happiness
Yay,
Lab.
I got one thing in my chemo brain. I was right.
The Happiness Lab.
You're gonna have to list all the books you talked about, because I can't remember any of them with my chemo brain.
Right.
I think they maybe. I'll just put them on my website.
Okay.
But the Happiness Lab did this episode about gratitude,
Mhm.
and a Yale professor not her, but another Yale professor, studied gratitude and how it affects the physical body.
Mhm.
And what he was saying is that small acts of gratitude, not the big obvious ones, like I'm so grateful I'm alive, I'm so grateful that I have my health. Obviously, those are pretty obvious. We're grateful for those. But like the really marking the small ones, like I'm really grateful you loaned me your pencil. Thank you. I'm really grateful for that. And logging them somehow, it doesn't have to be a physical, like written log, but saying them out loud or really, really acknowledging those small gratitudes, he found lowers cholesterol, lowers your blood pressure, and seems to help people stay on their long-term goals. Particularly, they studied weight loss. So people who were working on weight loss, if they really logged their small gratitude every day, were able to achieve their goals more efficiently, effectively, and maintain them. As opposed to people who didn't do that kind of gratitude project. They just weren't as high achieving, I guess, as the people who had all this gratitude. So I just thought that was such a fascinating way to look at how you end your day. As I had said to my kids and I do this thing at dinner, and my husband when he's here, we say, what's your favorite part of the day? What's your least favorite part of the day? And now we've added, what are you grateful for? And it can't be anything big.
Okay.
It has to be something really small. And it's amazing to watch them process their day and find something they're really grateful about. That's simple. Like it's super easy to see the big things. So I've asked them too to just at night before you go to bed, just write down what you said at dinner. You've already said it, so you don't have to come up with it.
Right.
Just write it down. And you don't have to say, I am grateful for. You can just say, Tommy loaned me his pencil.
Right.
I mean, the journal is about gratitude. So it all goes without saying, you're grateful for whatever you've written there. And it's hard to get a kid to journal, but I've started doing that myself. And I'm a pretty grateful person. Like I'm one of those people that walks around in the day listening for God. I'm not religious, but I am really spiritual and I feel very connected to God. And I watch and listen for what is being said to me. And sometimes there's nothing, but sometimes when something happens, I go, that was, thank you. Thank you for that moment. Thank you for
It's a God wink. People
whatever.
call it a God
Exactly.
wink.
And sometimes they are really simple. Like,
Finding your keys.
like finding your keys, like the Bert putting the keys in the basket, which never happens. If he puts the keys in the basket, I go, oh, thank you, God. Thank you. But to write it down and to keep a log of it, we were talking about this yesterday also. It's amazing to see a body of work. If you do it day after day, you feel that day after day. But when you write it down, you can see it.
Well, there's power in the written word.
100%. I was a writer too for years. But just to see the volume of gratitude in a palatable, like I can hold it in my
Tangible.
hand, tangible. Yes, I have. I'm so grateful for all these things. It's got to be life-changing.
Yes.
It
for
has
sure.
to be.
I mean, I was just at the Oprah, day of whatever it was called, Oprah's wellness tour that she had.
Oh,
Oh, I don't know
she's-
about this.
Oh, she's like going around. She's partnering with WW, which used to be Weight Watchers, and now they just call it WW.
Okay.
And they're doing this wellness tour, and she's going all over the country, and she has different people come and talk.
I
And
think I read, didn't she like fall or something during?
She
one of the
did
things?
fall.
Okay,
I
she
was
at one of
there
those
for the
things.
falling.
Oh, you were
Oh, boy.
there. Oh
I
my
was there. I
gosh.
saw the fall. And she handled it beautifully. And it was, I mean, by the end of the day, we had kind of all forgotten about it.
Oh.
It really was like not, it's becoming like a big thing. People are very like, oh, Oprah fell. And I mean, Stedman raced to the side of the stage to make sure she was okay. A couple people came out, got her up.
Was it here in LA?
It was here. It was at
Okay.
the Forum.
Oh, cool.
And she was like, and she was talking about balance at the time.
Oh, that's
Which was
that's
really
what I
hilarious.
read. She was talking about that.
She was talking about balance. And then she was like, wrong shoes. So she kicks off her shoes. She walks around barefoot. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, at that, I don't want that to be the takeaway
Right,
from
right,
here
right.
because it wasn't it definitely wasn't the takeaway for me from that day. But she did talk about the power of gratitude and writing it down and having that connection to, that physical connection to the things in your life that you're grateful for. And I think, there's been lots of studies about the power of joy and happiness. Brene Brown talks about it a
Oh,
lot.
I love her. Yeah, she does.
I love her
I love
so
her.
much. I love her because she's just so
Texan.
Texan. She's so relatable.
Yeah,
It's
she is.
none of it is
And
pretense.
she presents herself as a flawed human.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's all
That I love.
just like I'm working through my shit.
Yeah.
If you're working through your like, she's like, if you're not in the arena, then I'm not interested. If you're not working on yourself too, then I'm not interested in your opinion. But if you're in it with me, then
Yeah.
let's go. And I love that. Like
Yeah.
she's so awesome. But she also, does a lot of research on shame and vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
and also the flip side of that, I think, which is joy and hope and love. And so there's been so many studies that show that. And yet, as humans, we always go, the first thing is, the negative. Like this, the coronavirus is a prime example.
Yeah.
We're all going to this extreme place of fear. Get all the water, get all the toilet paper. Y'all, no one ever said the basic city services are going away.
Right.
No one's losing water.
Right.
No, one's losing water. I know.
Like,
Scott
you can
went to
still go
Costco.
to the store, grab some toilet paper, and come home.
yeah.
Right.
It's
Well,
not like it's
I'm
fine.
always stocked up on toilet paper though because I hate being out.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
I am
get
too.
it from Amazon, and
I
I'm
do too. Auto delivery.
Yeah,
I
exactly,
just auto
exactly.
ship. That's the other thing. Ooh, cancer people and everybody. Set up auto ship for like toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, laundry soap, hands, like just
stuff
shampoo, just
don't
the
wanna
stuff
run
that you
out of.
always
Yeah,
use
you're
and
gonna
you don't
need
want to
it.
forget. I have that stuff. Dog food. I never have to lug in a big old thing of dog food. All that's on auto ship. I get it. You set up whatever,
Mhm.
Of course, then you're supporting the devil that is Amazon, the devil.
Well, you could go to Chewy.
I was-
You could do Chewy. They do auto ship too.
What's
For dog
Chewy?
food.
Chewy.com
pet.
is for dog
Yeah.
food.
Oh, well, there you go.
Dog food, cat food, and chicken food.
Chicken
They do
food.
it all auto
Mhm.
ship.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a brave thing, I think, to face cancer. I think we were talking earlier about my aunt who was a nurse and had ovarian cancer, and I think she knew she had it a long time before she went to the doctor and was afraid.
Mhm.
No.
And instead of just going in there and warrioring up and saying, get this shit out and let's move on with life, to an extent, obviously, life is, I'm sure, never the same. She, and I think many people like her, perhaps made the choice to push it aside because it's scary.
Well, that's
You
what happened
know.
with my grandfather. And it was a really interesting sort of a family, I don't know, legend in a
Mhm.
way, a family story, that he waited too long. Everybody would be like, he waited too long. He was afraid.
Yeah.
And he
Mhm.
didn't go, and he waited too long. And there was this feeling of, I always got a sense that everybody was a little mad at him for not going soon enough. And I was always like, check your body. You got to go. Go.
Yeah.
But then when it happened to me, the same thing.
Mm.
Interesting.
The same thing. So I didn't inherit his cancer, but I did inherit that.
But it's
Because-
human nature, I think.
I think it is.
I did a podcast with Bert, with Jim Gaffigan's wife, who had a pear-shaped tumor in her brain.
Mhm.
It was a benign tumor, but it obviously was in her brain. So it affected all kinds of stuff. And she kept saying, that's weird. I can't really walk in high heel shoes anymore. That's odd. Can't really keep my balance. I can't really hear out of this ear. But never went past the just noticing.
Mm.
And, was at a pediatrician's appointment with her 5 children. And the doctor was talking to her and she couldn't hear the doctor because she was in her deaf ear. And the doctor was like, I think you really need to have that checked. And she was like, if I had never taken my kids to the pediatrician,
Mhm.
I would have died. It would have killed me at some point because it was right at her brainstem and it was pushing
Oh,
the
man.
stem against the side. And that's why she had no balance. That's why
Yeah.
she was losing her hearing. And the recovery from that was not a joke. It was crazy. She wrote a book about it
Mm.
called When Life Gives You Pears.
Oh, that's funny.
And it was because it was a pear-shaped tumor. But that was part of what I got from her book is that we, especially as busy moms, push through and keep on going.
for sure.
And are like, it's fine. It's nothing. I don't have any history, or I don't know. My grandfather didn't get it till he was 80. And, I have colon cancer history in my family, but they are all 70 or 80 when they get it.
Mm.
So my doctor's like, when you turn 50, we're going to start your colonoscopies. It's going to start at 50. You're just going to have it all the time not worry about it because it's in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I will say, I'm going to take this
Yeah.
moment to do my little cancer PSA. There is an easier way to detect colon cancer now because colon cancer is the fastest rising cancer in people under 50.
Mm.
And it's hard to get insurance companies. I think now they're recommending colonoscopy start at 45, which is great.
Right.
Oh yeah, they asked me if I'd had one at my
Earlier
checkup
detection
the other day. Yeah.
is key. But now they have a test you can get in the drugstore, and you poop and you wipe a little bit of the poop on a piece of paper,
Mm.
and it's a specific test, and then you mail it off and they check it. So it's completely non-invasive. It's not the whole rigmarole of the colonoscopy situation, which, by the way, people fear, and they're like, oh God, it's going to be so terrible. The prep is the worst part, and it's not the best 12 hours of your life, but like it's completely doable. So people don't let your fear of the colonoscopy prevent you from getting one, because it's not as terrible as people say it is.
Right.
But you can do this test, and I mean, I've seen commercials for
Right,
it now,
Yeah, I think
and
I
you
have
can send
too.
it off, and
Well,
then they'll.
that's like with mammograms. People are afraid to get mammograms, but you know what I say is I say, well, cancer hurts worse.
Cancer does hurt worse, and a mammogram is 5 minutes.
It's really not that
It's
bad.
5
People freak
minutes.
out about it, and every time I'm like, what is wrong? You know, and I mean, I've had 2 colonoscopies now, and I've got the prep down. So I use Suprep. It's 2 small bottles of stuff. Some people use a gallon of stuff. I like the Suprep.
Is this like for an enema?
It's a drink.
A drink.
So what I do, here's what you do. If you get the Suprep, it's a little bottle. You get it really cold, and you put a straw in it, and you hold your nose, suck down as much as you can, have a piece of lemon right next to you. As soon as you finish drinking it, suck on the lemon, because it's got this weird sort of bitter medicinal kind of aftertaste. That's kind of the worst part of it. But the lemon for me counteracts that. So I suck on the lemon, and then I drink a little water, and then I go back in until I've drunk this whole little, it's like a Yoo-hoo sized bottle. And then you just have to drink water,
Right.
and then you pee out your butt.
Sounds like a body shot.
Yeah.
Like drink lemon, drink
Pretty
lemon,
much,
drink
pretty much.
lemon, and then
Um,
you
And then
pee
you
out
poop-
your
you
butthole.
pee out your butt.
Nice.
But the thing I was worried about was that, you know, when you have like an upset stomach and you're peeing out of your butt, it's crampy
Right.
and painful, and it's terrible. And I was really worried that it was going to be like that. And
Yeah.
it is not.
It's not.
So it's literally like you feel like you have to poop. You feel like I got to poop right now.
Yeah.
And you go in the bathroom and you pee out your butt. But it's
Awesome.
not, you don't have the cramping and the
Sounds
pain.
very
I was
clean.
gonna say I have IBS, so I feel like that happens to me all the time.
I
I gotta go right now.
Right this minute, yes. Well, and now that I'm missing a foot of my colon,
Right.
there's that too. It's like, and the chemo that I'm on now too, also, it's like, oh no, there's
So
no
with
waiting.
the chemo now, is this is the path to better? There's no surgery for this particular.
Well, I have all the oncologists. My liver surgeon oncologist does want to take it out. I have 2 little spots in my liver, and I had 2 spots in my lung. As of December, the spots in my lungs were PET negative, so presumed dead.
Awesome.
And as of a couple weeks ago, when I went to see my liver surgeon again, it's not. There's no uptick on the there was no uptick on the MRI with contrast. So the things in my liver appear to also be dead. So I've
Good.
NED in theory again, but he does want to take them out because he wants to make sure because if we take it out, then they can analyze it,
Right,
and they can
right.
be sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it's dead. This
That
is
makes
actually
sense.
the program. This program is working for you.
Got it.
So, and you know, the chemo effects this time, like the bottoms of my feet are peeling, and I get blisters on the
Okay.
bottoms of my feet. So I have to stay off my feet a lot. And
Oof.
I mean, you know, so easy for a mom who's essentially
Right.
being a single mother
Totally.
to not be on your feet. No problem.
Yeah.
And then
How much longer do you have to take the chemo?
I don't know.
Okay.
It might be sort of like a ongoing
Ongoing.
thing. My pharmacist at the infusion center says that he's had patients on Avastin, which is the biologic thing, the other thing that I'm on.
Mm.
That he's got a patient who's been on it for like 10 years.
Wow.
It is affecting my blood pressure,
Mm.
so I don't know that they'll keep me on it for that long. But even with this time when it came back, they were like, there's like 13 different combinations of drugs that we haven't even tried yet.
Wow.
So I don't want you thinking, and my liver guy was like, we're still looking towards cure for you. Like
Right.
even with it coming back,
That's
I still see that path for you.
That's
And I'm
great.
like, great.
Love
Let's
that
do
path.
I love that.
I choose
Let's do
that.
I choose that. Yeah. We never did tell the story of how we told our kids. Do we want to tell that story?
Yeah.
Do we have time?
I don't have time.
Okay.
I ran out of time 10 minutes ago. But
We are
Well,
chatty
I being it was breast cancer, real quick. I told them, they were little also, and I said, it's like your teddy bear, and if something happens to the stuffing inside your teddy bear, we have to take the bad stuffing out, and then we put in new stuffing, and that's basically
That's
I said.
great.
So I have a big bump right here, and the doctor's going to take it out, and then he's going to put in something new.
Mhm.
So that was, I think, a kind of a relatable thing that could help kind of explain it to a kid. And I think that might work for, different types of cancer.
Totally.
Like even, like, oh yeah, I have this like little thing here. They have to take it out and then it's going to be okay. The doctor takes out the bad stuff.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting that.
Kind of
Mhm.
simplified.
What
Yeah,
about you?
I told them, I have this thing. It's called a tumor. Eventually it came out. One of Emerson's friends, like, in sort of a terrible way, told her that I had cancer. So that was sort of a mess.
no.
But beyond that, when they came home and we started talking about it, I was like, okay, here's the deal. That tumor thing that I had, we already knew that was, I have a tumor. It's a thing in my colon. They're going to take it out, whatever. It's a thing called cancer. And there are two different kinds of cancers. There's a really scary bad kind. And then there's a not so scary kind.
Mhm.
That's,
Mhm.
you have it, they find it, they take it out, you have some medicine. The medicine can be a little hard and I'll lose my hair and
Mhm.
whatever, but I'll be okay.
Right.
That's the kind that I have. But when grown-ups hear the word cancer, they think of the other kind.
Right.
So that's why you're going to see people looking very worried and concerned.
That's really smart. Way of
Because
putting
they're
it.
gonna they're gonna be thinking that. But I want you to know the truth of what it is, and it's this, so
Mhm.
you know that that's what it is.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, there was obviously more to it than that, but that was essentially what we talked about. The stuffing thing is really good too. I mean,
That's really
especially when
smart.
they're little, it's like
Right.
that's something they can kind of understand.
Conceptualize and understand. Yeah, but even the knowing that there's two different kinds, that's really, really smart too, because you're right. People react like you're dead.
Mhm.
You got one foot in
Well,
the
yeah.
grave,
When
one
I-
foot in the banana peel.
Yeah. When I did ask them, what do you think of when you hear the word cancer? My one daughter did say dying. And I said, well, and I said kind of a similar thing. I said, there are some types that people do die from. I said, but I don't have that kind. So, because breast cancer is very treatable and stuff
Yeah.
these days. So it was a similar kind of a thing.
I was
Mhm.
like, nobody has ever said in all of this, no one has ever talked about a timeline,
Right.
talked about anything other than this is the path to
Wellness.
cure,
Mhm.
to wellness,
Mhm.
to even if it becomes a chronic thing, it comes back. We know how to treat it when you have a flare up.
Right.
It's not, it's just not the same thing. I
Mhm.
mean,
It's not a
thing.
death sentence.
it's not this
No.
particular kind, not a death sentence.
That's wonderful.
So yeah.
Not to say congratulations for that, but congratulations for that because that's really great.
Mhm.
If they're, I guess if I have a great aunt who's had leukemia since I was in high school,
Oh, wow.
and I'm 50 this year, and she just keeps doing these rounds of chemo,
Mhm.
and she's still alive.
Mhm.
And so you just never know.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily the worst case scenario every time. I mean, my aunt with ovarian cancer, it was the worst case scenario. And they told her that. And she knew that. So
Mhm.
we could get ourselves together as much as one can.
Mhm.
But, leukemia, what's that, 35 years later? She's still here and
amazing.
still fighting the fight. So
Yeah.
you just never know. I think you really do have to treat it on a person by person basis, not even a case by case, but a person
Mhm.
by person, because two people could have the same type of cancer and experience it very differently.
That's right.
I think.
Christopher and I say, that's my husband. We say, there's the statistics, but the statistics don't apply in this case
Right.
because I'm already outside these
Right.
statistics as far as how it all went down and how it went away and
Yeah.
all of that. So we can't, looking at the numbers, hearing, anytime I see an article that talks about, I just stop reading
Yeah.
because it's like, I don't that doesn't have to be my story. That's not me.
No.
So I don't need to have that in my brain anyway.
Right.
Um,
It's not always apples to apples.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's great to hear the different stories
I
because,
agree.
like we were talking about earlier, is that we're both, young. We have kids. You have some symptom and then you ignore it, and then another symptom happens, and you might push it off to the side, and then you find out that it is something. So I think that's good that, you for both of us to talk about, like you shouldn't ignore things or just play it off like it's something else because
Right.
you never know.
right.
very
And
true.
also just that fear,
Mhm.
like cancer doesn't have to be the scary thing that
Mhm.
it used to be.
Right,
The
right.
more we can demystify it, the more we can show that it's a thing that you can live with, you can live beyond, you can, whatever it is that, whatever your path is through it, don't let your fear of the diagnosis
Right.
prevent you from going in,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
the truth is, if you get the diagnosis, then the scariest part is the moments before. When you're
Right.
in treatment,
Right.
that's not the scary part. The scary part is the moment before. So if you
Right.
can get through that, then you can get through the rest of it.
That's
because
right.
that's the part. The unknown is the part that's the scary
Mhm.
part.
What's the saying? The only thing to fear is fear itself. Right?
They say that.
So Tanya's setting up a beauty counter store
A pop-up.
a
online
pop-up.
pop-up. Yeah.
for how long?
I think it's open for either 10 days or 2 weeks. And so we'll
Okay.
open it up the day that this airs. And and then the proceeds will go to
The Foundation for Living Beauty. And it's, I think it's foundationforlivingbeauty.org. Certainly you can Google Foundation for Living Beauty. Livingbeauty.org. Thank you.
Livingbeauty.org.
I'll put a link on my
Okay.
website, and then
it
I'll,
is a beautiful organization, and I highly recommend it. It's for all women going through
any type of cancer.
any
right?
type of
Mhm,
cancer.
that's
I
great.
do wish, I wish there were more of those kinds of organizations for men, because women are so good about reaching out and kind of forming that community and
Mhm.
giving each other support. I was talking to one of my dearest friends who was diagnosed with colon cancer 3 months after me,
wow.
and a guy, and he was like, there's just not that. Men don't talk about it in the same way. I think there's real value in opening up the space
Right.
to allow for men to have those kinds of conversations too. So, I mean, that's a whole other
Oh, sure.
like
Yeah.
thing to unpack, but like,
Oh, well, men get breast cancer too.
men get
And
breast
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know on one of my support groups, they were talking about a man who had tried to get on one of the breast cancer support groups, and they wouldn't let him because he was a man, but he had breast cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like, they
That's
don't-
too bad.
Mhm.
So they need that support too.
Mhm.
So hopefully there will become a brother organization. But in the meantime, this beautiful Foundation for Living Beauty does support women, and it's just a really lovely group of women that run the office. And
Yeah, and I'll add the link. I
provide
have my
services.
website. I need to do more with it. Maybe I'll do more with the blog with the gratitude stuff. But I have my hopemovesmountains.com, and I'll put the link to that on there as well. So if people click links on there, they can find that organization also.
So you can go to movesmountains.com,
Hope Moves Mountains.
hopemovesmountains.com,
Mhm.
and there's a link
Yep.
tab
Mhm.
that will have the link to the
Yep.
foundation.
It'll have the beauty counter link.
Excellent.
That they can get some things and donate to the pop up. And then I'll put the link to the organization as well, so
and
they
I'll
can find
do
out
it on
more
my
about it.
Instagram. If you search for # cancer like a mother, that's my hashtag.
Hashtag cancer like a mother, and then wifeotp.com.
Mhm.
I'll put the links on wifeotp.com. Thank you, ladies, so
Great.
much for
Thank
talking about
you.
this. Thank you for sharing your story.
Sure.
You know, I really do 100% with all of my soul believe that feeling alone is so detrimental to forward progress and mental health.
Mhm.
That once you realize you are not alone,
Mhm.
you take a big leap forward, right? In healing and in balance and health and in hope. So maybe someone will hear your story and not feel alone.
I hope so.
I hope so too. And to learn, maybe not to be so afraid, to just take the bull by the horns and
Or feel the fear and do it anyway.
feel the fear and do it anyway. And yeah, there's a great book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
I'm certain there is.
There is. I've read it a long time ago. But thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. And thank you for bringing Allie to this
Yeah.
podcast.
I know
And I
she-
always
yeah,
love
she's amazing.
seeing you, always.
I know, me too.
So until next time,
Mhm.
thanks for coming.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
having us.